Local news, May 29, 2020. Authorities have identified the body recovered from the Juniata River Wednesday. Mifflin County Coroner Dan Lynch identified the victim as 17-year-old Isaiah Nilram. Search for Nilram began Tuesday evening when the teen disappeared from a group of swimmers in Granville Township. This is different than the narrative given in a GoFundMe. On Tuesday, May 26th, my baby brother Isaiah Nilram went to the Juniata with a group of friends to go swimming. As they were crossing the water, my little brother started lagging behind and went under. One of the guys there tried to save him, and we had hoped that he was an angel. They weren't able to save him, I guess. And this is very different. The local news identified him as a victim of what we do not know, but they did not find him until 3 days later. And there's something wrong with this narrative. If you're with a group of people and you happen to have a swimming accident, it would not take 3 days to go find him, but that is not the indication that we got. We got the indication that he was missing and reported missing. So they didn't know that he had drowned, according to one narrative and two narratives. Now, I understand that local media sometimes can be biased. And if you want to look at his obituary, you find that he's buried at Hathaway Funeral Home. Now, Hathaway is owned by, of course, Hathaway Berkshire. And I assure you that they do not need payment for funeral expenses if they work with Warren Buffett. But that's another matter altogether. And we'll visit this one. We're going to look at the obituary. Isaiah Robert Nilram, May 26 of 2020. Isaiah Robert Nilram, 17, Lewistown, passed away unexpectedly on Tuesday, May 26, 2020. Born December 12, 2012 in Concord, New Hampshire. He was the son of Robert A. and Dawn M. Golick Nilram. Now, that's a new maiden name for her. All my paperwork says that it's Taylor Dash Nilram. It was Taylor, and you can see Teresa Taylor here. There's nothing to indicate that she's related to any Golicks. In addition to his parents, he is survived by his maternal grandmother, Charlene, Elizabeth Golek, Amanda Boyd, who actually maiden name is also Taylor, the sister of Teresa, who's married. She was married to Justin Keyser at one time, and then married to Bryson Harbrick, an MMA fighter. It is unfortunate if it really was an accident. I'm not going to... I already have other videos surrounding these people. But Addie Marshall's mentioned, my daughter. Why does she have a different last name? Then how come Dawn doesn't mention her name as Marshall? If she is supposedly the mother of this child. Which she is not. And they got caught kidnapping. But we're going to look into the Golick aspect of this obituary. So now they're claiming to have a different name. And I'm going to look at an older obituary. Marilyn Thayer Graham. And I do believe that they also used a Berkshire Hathaway. See, Hathaway Funerals. I assure you that that they are involved probably with Warren Buffett, but that's beside the point. Graham Marlin Thayer, or Marlin Thayer Graham, but which, by the way, Marlin is, well, Nilram is backwards for Marlin. Attleboro, We have the Henrys mentioned, the Grahams mentioned, Frost mentioned, but no Golek here. I found that kind of odd, don't you? In fact, no mention that Dawn Taylor Nilram, or Dawn Nilram, whatever name she wants to use, is even listed in this obituary, and they're supposedly married. All right, so let's look into Elizabeth Golek, because she claims that Elizabeth Golek is her mother. And I visited here before to preview everything before I did my video, which is fine. And we find that her actual name, she has another name of Heather Tian at the age of 81. All right, but she only has 2 relatives. Charles Victor Golek of Tampa, Florida. Oh, we got an FPOAE address. That's United Kingdom. Hua Young Golek, a Korean guy, United Kingdom. But no mention of any Dawn Nilram being going by the maiden name of Golek. Hua Young Kim. So we'll look at Charles Victor Golek if you don't mind. And given that we have a lot of people using fake names around here, this has to be checked. So this is the reason why I use these resources. Oh, he's also known as a woman named Heather T, and that's probably a mistake. But then again, nowadays, since people are gender confused, who knows? And Mitchell Bates. So it might be another fake name again. But we'll look at the relatives. Hua Young Golek of Tampa. And again, we have a military address, which is overseas. And Elizabeth Golek is, but no mention of any Dawn Nilram or Dawn Golek. Interesting. Let's look at Hua Young, see if he's maybe related. Maybe she's half Korean or something. Could be. I mean, after all, they're brothers. Which, by the way, is interesting. If they're related as brothers, why are both of them, if they were her only children, in the military? Because that's a military violation. That happened in World Wars, where a woman lost all of her sons. And so they made it a law. You can't have all of the male children serving in the military, in case they all die and your lineage be cut off. Fort Leavenworth, that's again, so this guy's probably career military. Fort Hood, Texas, Fayetteville, North Carolina, maybe near Fort Bragg. And again, FPOE is usually probably the United Kingdom. And then you have an APO, Armed Forces, 96271, that's probably South Korea. And then we have Hua Young Golek, or Hava Y Kim. I guess he's got more than one name too. 09620, not sure what that is. But we'll look him up and see if maybe Dawn shows up as a relative to him. Three relatives found. Charles Victor Golek, Elizabeth M. Golek, and oh, well, we have a new one. Interesting. Kim J. Anderson, who currently lives in Virginia, but previously lived in Cottonwood, California on Black Pine Road, which is not that far from Redding, California. and where Bethel Church was, and Bethel Church did aid and abet, in my opinion, trafficking or helping to kidnap my daughter with these people. And see, right there, it's a Korean name. So I wonder if Miss Anderson is half Korean, if she's a relative. I mean, you can have biracial or in-laws or whatever. That's not necessarily un-American or anything. I don't have a problem with that. So we have Dean Anderson and Kimberly Anderson. And we have a lot of relatives. Oh, there she is. She doesn't look half Korean to me, but that could happen. Maybe. I don't know what a relative is. But we'll definitely didn't know. And I do believe I do recognize her, but I don't know her that well. And I do believe she attended Bethel Church. So, I guess they took off to Virginia before they got caught, along with Anderson, Dane Anderson, but I'm not related to any Anderson. Oh, Armstrongs. And Hua Young Golek. Ron Lopez Armstrong, Don D. Armstrong, Monty Anderson. So this woman could be involved in this and helping them get a hold of my daughter. Well, we have a family member in Roseville at Jensen. I'm not saying every family member would be involved in this. That's not necessarily the case. Oh, Oceanside, California. Well, the birth father of my kidnapped child was from Oceanside and San Diego, California. All right. Enough looking into that. We're not really investigating the Andersons right now. But you can tell that there's definitely some odd things going on here. And we'll look at Facebook. I mean, he could be an in-law maybe, but there's no mention of any and that's Dawn Nilram right there. Does she look part Korean to you? Does she look like she could be related to the Goleks, to Hawaiian Golek? Of course, he could be an adopted child by Elizabeth Golek, but how come there's no mention of her being a relative to this 81-year-old elderly woman who I know nothing about, who could be in a nursing home somewhere? And Dawn Nilram does purport to be now a nurse. She didn't before when I met her. So, for all we know, and I do have evidence of probate estate fraud involving this woman. Maybe even identity theft. I don't even know her real name. At this point, and her husband uses other names. Thomas Clark uses other names. So, that's my point here. We'll go to white pages, though, just to cross-reference. Maybe she shows up in there. Let's see if she's related to Elizabeth Golek, as she claims. Apparently, the obituaries didn't check things. Family. Ronald V. Golek. Now that didn't show up on Ben Verified, but the other Charles Victor Golek shows up. Young Golek doesn't show up at all. So we have him claiming to be family when he could be an in-law. But they would say that. Now we have Susan J. Frazier showing up, which is the purported sister when this all started with these people of Don Nilram. And what's interesting is Sully Erna, sister, married into the Frazier family. And we'll even look that up to show you briefly that that's the case. And Daniel Bernard Frazier. Salvatore P. Erna, which is the father of Sully Erna, who also shares the same name, and Salvatore Paul Erna. We're not going to pry too much in that. So we have celebrities possibly involved in child trafficking, probate estate fraud, and who knows whatever else they're involved in. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more than that going on. But we'll go back to, again, Golek. And I'll link to Berkshire Hathaway as well. Elizabeth. Oh, now we have Young Golek showing up. Clint Edward Mack. Any relation? I wonder if there's any relation to Allison Mack, who was recently arrested for child trafficking. And we have the Fraziers again. I'm not saying everybody on the list is involved. Some people probably know each other simply. Amanda Taylor, Jessica May Russell. Now what's interesting is Catherine O. Russell married Tamlin Snarev. I'm not saying it's the same Russell family, but we already know that they did know each other from a previous video that I loaded up. And of course, Robert Nilram is a demolition worker. And we're going to look at Ronald V. Golek, who's supposedly deceased from Bath, Maine. Interesting. I do not know any Goleks. What's interesting is that this Elizabeth M. Golek doesn't show up with a husband in her history. But you can tell that there's definitely something odd about this. And we'll go look back. And look at Charles Victor Golek. And Fort Hood, Fort Leavenworth, Fayetteville, North Carolina. Again, a lot of them. APO, Armed Forces address overseas. South Korea, probably on this one. On the other one, it was an FPO of the United Kingdom. So, Fort Hood. So this guy looks like he's career military. And I have alleged the possibility of military intelligence involved, but the military does not have a right to steal estates, kidnap children, or murder families. Neither do celebrities have the right to help them. But if Sully Erner is involved in this, as it is indicated, then it explains why Benjamin Burnley is also involved in this, and why Metallica is also involved as well. And we'll look at Hawaii Young. And again, Hawaii Young. Similar addresses. Fort Hood. So he too is in the military. So why are two sons supposedly in the military? If there's not a discrepancy. So we're going to do another look here, just to cross-reference. We're going to look up Dawn Nilram herself. And we'll look at where I met her when she pulled out this scheme or scam. And may go by Dawn M. Taylor Nilram, and that is the name that she did use. She's related to Robert R. Taylor. He could be her ex-husband, but we're going to see that there's no indication of any Golek. No Golek mentioned at all in anything at all. Interesting. So there's no mention of any Golek for Dawn Taylor Nilram. And this is supposedly who she's related to, David Tiller, Dawn M. Nilram. So it says here that the Taylors are related to her. We have Jill Marie Taylor. I wonder if that's the same as Jill Marie Mendowski. So we have, interesting. Let's use the name Dawn Golek. We apologize if the dog bark in the background as we have somebody arriving in my house. So we'll try to make this and wrap this quick. And we're not going to put any state. We'll look up everywhere. We have Dorothy M. Golek, who is deceased in San Diego, related to Audrey M. Hodge. And we have a Danuta K. Golek of Washington, who lives in Connecticut, a Debbie L. Golek of 61 of Berwyn, Illinois, a Golek Danuta Kwiatkowski of Southbury, Connecticut, and a Daniel Christopher Gelek of Sugar Land, Texas. But there's no existence of any Dawn Golek anywhere. Audrey M. Hodge. Now, the name Hodge sounds familiar. And I'm going to point it out. San Diego, California. But no indication of a Dawn. So this woman is a fraud, probably. And we have caught her at least lying in an obituary. We have John Madison Hodge. We have Veronica Hodge. And I'm going to show you why that name sounds familiar. We're going to look up a Benjamin Fitzgerald. Who was in Redding, California, spreading lies and information. And I have a previous video showing up in Ann Fitzgerald, who he could be possibly related to. But he attended Bethel in Redding, California. And supposedly his mom is a Hodge last name. So we know originally from Australia, Ben Fitzgerald was on staff at Bethel and Redding for several years. In 2014, Jesus showed him a vision of the field, blah, 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 blah. I'm not interested right now in exposing any possible religious fraud from him. There is an argument going on over that in their church. But this guy here helped cover up the child trafficking of my daughter. And we're going to put his mom with the name Hodge. And it says right here from Pulpit and Pen, Bethel missionary Ben Fitzgerald has tantrum over tarot card correction. Again, I'm not here to discuss church arguments per se, but to try to expose that this man is probably not who he says he is. He may be involved in probate fraud with Don Nilram. Ben Fitzgerald is a missionary about the church in Redding. Apparently, we expose his parents for running the ministry Crystal Lyman, which employs New Age and occult practices in the name of Christianity. So they run a different ministry, and it's caused a clash. So what I wanted to point out is the name of his mom. And by the way, Ben Fitzgerald accused me in front of Bethel in a house church of being a witch. And I have a previous video that the Rhodes did that too. Because it's my word against theirs, but you can tell that this guy could be involved in this, and I'm alleging this. The Fitzgerald Hodge family, not the other way around. So again, we have some circumstantial evidence that he is definitely not who he says he is. And we have evidence of a foreign individual. Again, we know that the United Kingdom base is involved in this, and so it might be the United Kingdom behind kidnapping my daughter, an American citizen. And involving some people who may be in the U.S. Either way, these people are not related to my daughter that I know of anyway, and even if they were, what they're doing is illegal. And this is a very serious matter, because if they're involved in aiding and abetting probate fraud and going after people in nursing homes, stealing estates, or whatever else, or even stealing their children, or both, is a problem. And they're on Hotmail. But we're going to go back a little bit more, and we'll look up at so her name is supposedly Jen Hodge. And again, it's caused some church problems, as you can tell. Son of a witch, Ben Fitzgerald's occultist mother slanders Christians as she promotes awakening in Australia. Now, I'm not going to accuse. Again, that could be for a later comment. We alert our readers once more to Jen Hodge from the Crystal Alignment Ministry and a recent attack on discerning Christians, blah, 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 of witchcraft and other occultist practices. So Jen Hodge is the mother of this man, Ben Fitzgerald, and he showed up at Bethel along with another woman with a boy, I think, that was supposedly dying of cancer, the Windstroms and a few other people. and covered up trafficking my daughter. He slandered me, called me a witch in front of other people. But that's not the point here. The point here is to establish that Jen Hodge is involved in kidnapping my daughter along with Ben Fitzgerald. And since he's a foreigner and not a U.S. citizen, that makes it a problem. A big problem. And we're going to leave it at that.